This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
International concerns mount over insecurity in the Sahel region after two deadly attacks in Niger and Mali. The quest for a COVID vaccination passport and why Africa needs to get on board. And the inspiring achievements of a 21-year-old doctor in South Africa. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. I'll be back with those news and others in just a moment. But first, here's Rama Nyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
That's right, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Zimbabwe says it's on course to triple mining revenue by 2023. We'll look at the forecast. And inflation in Nigeria has spiked to a 4-year high as food prices go up by more than 20% in 12 months. We'll have the details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And let's begin with the mounting security concerns in the Sahel. In Niger, militants have killed at least 58 people. Authorities say armed men ambushed a convoy and attacked a nearby village. The assault happened on Monday in the Tillaberi region, which is located in Niger's northwest. The region is near the border with Mali and Burkina Faso. It has seen a rise in attacks carried out by Islamic militant groups. At least 100 people were killed in January when militants raided two villages. And staying in the Sahel region, an ambush has left at least 33 soldiers dead in Mali. Around 14 soldiers were also injured in the attack. The assault took place in the northern Gao region. On Tuesday, a military convoy was ambushed near the town of Tessit. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack, although groups linked to ISIL and Al-Qaeda operate in the region. Further afield, police have arrested a suspect after a series of deadly shootings in the U.S. state of Georgia. 8 people have died and 6 of the victims are women of Asian descent. Our reporter Kate Fisher has more from Washington.
These 3 shootings took place within an hour on Tuesday afternoon, 2 in the city of Atlanta and 1 in Cherokee County, just north of the city. Police say that the 2 that took place in Atlanta, they believe the 4 victims there, 2 in one spa and 2 in another across the road from it. They believe they are all Asian women. 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long, who is a resident of Cherokee County. He's currently in police custody. Authorities say that things are still in very early. Their suspect was initially arrested in connection with the one in Cherokee County, but they believe, due to this video evidence, that he is probably linked to all 3, although they haven't made that official yet. They're still trying to determine a motive for these killings, but clearly, given the rise in racially motivated attacks on Asian Americans in recent months, there is a lot of speculation that this has been a racially motivated attack. The police say they're looking at every possible motive, but clearly that's at the top of a lot of people's minds, and it comes just off the back of U.S. President Joe Biden in his televised address to the nation last week, really being quite angry about how upset he was by the rise in attacks on Asian Americans, saying it's wrong, it's un-American, and it must stop.
On to North Africa now, where Tunisian President Kais Saied has begun his visit to neighboring Libya. He has been received in Tripoli by the President of the Presidential Council, Mohamed Al-Manfi. This marks the first time since 2012 that a Tunisian head of state has visited Libya. Saied is being accompanied by Foreign Minister Othman Jerandi and Senior Advisor Nadia Akacha, among other Tunisian officials. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin have met their South Korean counterparts in Seoul. The 2 senior American officials will stay in the South Korean capital for 2 days. It is expected their talks will focus on the DPRK and containing China's influence. South Korea is the second leg of the U.S. officials' inaugural overseas trip. They met with Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and other officials on Tuesday. Our correspondent Jack Button has more from Seoul.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin wasting no time after landing at a military airbase south of Seoul today, heading straight into meetings. So far, we've only heard from Lloyd Austin, who said before heading into the meeting with his South Korean counterpart, Seok, that he viewed South Korea as the linchpin for peace, security and prosperity in Northeast Asia, but also believed the relationship between Seoul and Washington was more important than ever at the moment because of what he said, in his words, as the new challenges posed by the DPRK and China. And those are no doubt themes that will head into tomorrow's meetings as well, 2+2, plus a meeting with President Moon Jae-in. China is expected to be discussed at length, as well as other topics, including climate change, the bad relations between Japan and South Korea at the moment, which the U.S. sees as a real issue. But it is expected to be the DPRK's nuclear weapons program that will dominate this round of talks. Joe Biden's administration has stated it is trying to come up with a strategy that is different from strategies in the past, and that it wants to consult with its South Korean partners and Japan and other nations before announcing that strategy.
Meanwhile, China is condemning new sanctions imposed by the United States under a legislation passed last year on Hong Kong's autonomy. On Wednesday, Washington identified 24 Chinese officials as, quote, interfering in Hong Kong's freedoms. The sanctions include restrictions on banking and business with some financial institutions. Here's a response from the Chinese Foreign Ministry.
The U.S. sanctions against the Chinese individuals, in line with the so-called Hong Kong Autonomy Act, seriously violates international law and basic norms governing international relations. It fully exposes intentions to interfere in China's internal affairs and disrupt Hong Kong and China's stability and development. China is firmly opposed to this and will take necessary countermeasures.
Well, these sanctions come just ahead of the high-level meeting in Alaska. We asked an expert what kind of signal this sends to Beijing.
I think on the one hand, this is sending a clear message to the Chinese side that the U.S. does not recognize China's core interest in relation to the Hong Kong issue and China's position on this particular issue. And also that the State Department of the United States will continue to execute American domestic law, which is the so-called Hong Kong Autonomous Act. And that's the first thing. And second thing is that the timing of this statement is just before the Alaska meeting that is going to happen between the two sides. So that's also sending a signal that during this talk, the U.S. will take a very strong position against China on core issues, and they will make Hong Kong issue a prominent issue during the talks between the two sides. And that is very concerning to the Chinese side, because that means the U.S. will continue to interfere with Chinese domestic politics using American domestic law.
The U.S. and China talks will be held in the American city of Anchorage, just below the Arctic Circle. The isolated location may seem like an odd place for a meeting, but CGTN's Nathan King explains why it was chosen.
It's a light dusting, is it?
It is a light dusting.
Former Alaska Governor Bill Walker knows quite a bit about freezing weather.
Oh, I'm from Valdez where we get, we'll get 4 feet at a time.
4 feet?
But like many others here this week, the governor wants to see a thaw in U.S.-China relations after the deep freeze of the last few years.
I'm hopeful from the standpoint, I think that there are some issues that they need to resolve that are well outside the area of trade. And I think they're going to start with that.
The planned meetings here, led by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and China's most senior diplomat and Politburo member Yang Jiechi, are being called a one-off by the White House. Joined by new U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, this high-level meeting will occur here in Anchorage, roughly halfway between Washington and Beijing. It's a sub-zero scene reflecting where the relationship has been, but Alaska is also an epicenter for issues the two powers need to work on, like climate change and commerce.
China is our largest trade partner. They have been for 13 years. and largely with seafood, oil. The amount of oil that's shipped from Alaska to China has doubled from 2019 to 2020. So we have a lot of Asia is our market.
This meeting on the ice will happen after U.S. officials have met with Asian allies Japan and the Republic of Korea. Bill Walker was governor the last time leading Chinese officials visited the Arctic state. He hosted Xi Jinping and his delegation after they had just held their first summit with then President Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Since then, the U.S.-China relationship has chilled, and while the U.S. criticizes China on human rights from Hong Kong to Xinjiang, U.S. political divisions and violence have tarnished Washington's image abroad. This independent-minded former governor is pushing to change that.
It does have a negative impact, and I'm all about jobs. I'm all about creating infrastructure and developing our resources responsibly. And it's hard to do that if there's too much partisanship associated. The economy should not be a partisan issue. Healthcare, I've always said, should not be a partisan issue. So there are certain things that just should be. You search for the right answer.
Well, we don't expect all issues to be solved, of course, in just this one meeting. What we're looking for is some sort of cooperation on the big issues like commerce, climate and COVID, rather than the divisions we've seen over the past few years. Nathan King, CGTN, Anchorage, Alaska.
We'll take a short break now. When we return, the quest for a COVID vaccination passport and why Africa needs to get on board. And the inspiring achievements of a 21-year-old doctor in South Africa.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt,
along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
China is easing visa rules for more foreigners who've received a Chinese-made COVID-19 vaccine. The new measure mostly applies to non-tourist applicants from countries such as Japan, Israel, Thailand, Pakistan, and the Philippines. China says vaccinated travelers will still need to show proof of a negative COVID-19 test, as well as an antibody test. They will also be required to follow relevant quarantine and observation measures after entering the country. China also plans to roll out certificates that will serve as proof of vaccination and health status. It says it hopes to discuss mutual recognition of vaccination with other countries. Meanwhile, the European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the bloc is setting up a travel certification process for travelers within the EU. This is aimed at ensuring COVID-19 vaccinated citizens travel with ease. The certificate will indicate vaccination status, infection history, and presence of or absence of antibodies.
Firstly, what is the function of this certificate? It shows or states whether the person has either been vaccinated or a recent negative test or has recovered from COVID and thus antibodies. Secondly, the certificate will make sure that the results or what it shows, the data, and the minimum set of data, are mutually recognized in every member state. And thirdly, with this digital certificate, we aim to help member states reinstate the freedom of movement in a safe, responsible, and trusted manner.
Indeed, it is becoming more apparent that international passengers might need to carry with them a COVID-19 vaccination passport. Earlier, we discussed the issue with Professor Martha Nunes, a senior research scientist at South Africa's Wits University. Professor Nunes touched on how this development could impact Africa.
It's definitely very, very important that African countries are at the same speed as the other countries once this type of tool is available. I think at this stage, it's still a bit premature to discuss if a record like this will be really needed to travel or not, especially because currently we do not actually know if vaccines really protect us from carrying the virus. So could be that you'll be vaccinated. It's recorded in your passport that you are vaccinated, but we actually don't know at the moment how we are probably protected from disease, but could be that we are still carrying the virus in our respiratory system. So I think for now, although vaccination certificate is important and it should be issued, there is still the need for COVID testing prior to traveling and prior to crossing borders. And indeed, I think that this vaccination passport, as they call it, it also be a record for recent COVID testing. I think that will be really great. So because we know that currently there are a lot of COVID tests that are easily not real, that they are falsified. So it will be a way to really to have accurate information on the vaccination status of the traveler. The current discussions that are happening around this issue is mostly to have a passport in an electronic base. So for example, have it in your cell phone. So you'll have a digital passport that you can scan when you travel, that you can use whenever it's needed. But then, for example, only people that have smartphones will have access to this type of document. So that is something that we need to have in consideration. If everybody or the majority of people will have smartphones or devices that can carry this type of documents. Then, of course, having a paper-based document, again, it's easy to lose. For me, the most important question is that now most of the population does not have access to vaccines. So most of the population is not vaccinated. So for me, that is the most important point that we need to discuss. If people cannot get access to vaccines, how they can be required to have a document like this. The country should get ready to accept people coming from overseas that will present this type of documents. So definitely Africa should get ready for a tool like this that can be presented either by locals or international people.
Somalia has kicked off its COVID-19 immunization campaign, while officials are trying to bolster public confidence in COVID-19 vaccines. Some remain hesitant. Ashtatal has more.
After receiving 300 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, Somalia has launched its immunization campaign. The country accessed the doses through the COVAX initiative. The country's health minister is among the first to receive the initial dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
I don't feel anything particular. I'm okay, and I hope it will go like this. Well, there are immunization programs going on in all over Somalia. Yes, some areas are not accessible. Our duty is to try to convince people to come and seek these services.
While officials are trying to bolster confidence, some are wary of taking the AstraZeneca vaccine.
The EU that produced the vaccines has stopped using it. Among them, France. We cannot simply trust it.
Somalia's health ministry, in the meantime, continues to urge the public to embrace COVID-19 vaccines. Astatal, CGTN.
The Egyptian government says it has signed contracts for the delivery of 120 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to the country. It is getting 40 million doses from China's Sinopharm. Most of the remaining doses will be those of the Oxford AstraZeneca jab, half of which will be from the COVAX initiative for fair vaccine distribution. The country has already started inoculating medical staff. Here's Adel Mahroui with the details.
Cairo has signed contracts to get COVID-19 vaccines for 60 million citizens. but just 100,000 doses have arrived. That's enough for only 75,000 people. 2/3 of the vaccines available are from China.
Egypt is facing difficulties in receiving its batches. This is due to limitations in the production capacity of pharmaceutical companies. They haven't been able to commit to their contracts to deliver COVID-19 vaccines.
Egypt opened an online registration platform for citizens interested in getting the vaccine. Yet after 10,000 applied, the government shut down the service and postponed announcing its vaccination schedule. Egyptian medical teams treating COVID-19 patients have been getting vaccination priority. So far, only 3,000 healthcare workers have received the jab.
More than 360 hospitals are getting the vaccine. Senior citizens who have chronic diseases come next in line after doctors, then people with chronic disease like heart and kidney conditions. Those who are considered to be high risk, they could get vaccinated within weeks or months. It depends on when the vaccine producers are going to send their shipments.
Egypt was the first African country to receive the Chinese vaccine from Sinopharm. Doctors say vaccines like Sinopharm's are better suited for countries like Egypt. That's because they can be stored and transported at regular refrigerator temperatures.
Pfizer and Moderna are two vaccines I believe are very difficult to be administered in Egypt. They need certain temperatures. Pfizer needs 70, Moderna 20. This makes the process of cooling them very difficult in developing countries, especially that the vaccines are not going to be only in big cities. They're supposed to be available all over Egypt.
I prefer the Chinese vaccine because it is made in the traditional way that we are all used to and understand very well. It is an inactivated coronavirus. Some of the new vaccines have modifications. They rely on the messenger RNA or viral vector. To me, I prefer waiting for some time until we have long-term research data available.
Egypt is expecting to receive some 5 million COVID-19 vaccines in March. Among them, a gift of 300,000 jabs from the Chinese government, which Beijing is offering to help Cairo in its struggle to acquire COVID-19 vaccines. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
To South Africa now, where a young doctor continues to win praise and admiration for her achievements. At just the age of 21, Dr. Tagalo Tibela has already completed her Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery at the Johannesburg-based Wits University, making her the youngest practicing doctor according to health authorities. CGTN's Elisan Jamela has more on this inspiring story.
Being a doctor has literally been a lifelong dream for Dr. Tagalo Tibela. She says she's always been keen on helping others, and being a doctor seemed to be one of the best options. And now, at the age of 21, she's living her dream.
The passion, I can say, of wanting to be a doctor stemmed from a very young age. I've always wanted to help people, and I just thought, what is a better way for me to give back and help people than to make sure they're in good health?
Dr. Tibela was born and raised in Violet Bank, a remote village in South Africa's Mpumalanga province. During her schooling years, she was often promoted to the next grade because of her academic excellence. It's that regular top academic performance that earned her membership of Gold Key International, which recognizes students who are doing well academically and excelling in universities all over the world.
So, in all honesty, when I got to university, I started feeling like I did not belong in a way, especially coming from a village. I have never interacted with people from other races before. My school was an all-black school, and now I get to university and there's everyone, and I'm there trying to find where I fit and all that. So when I got invited to be a member of the Golden Key, that was more of a reaffirmation for me that I do belong, and I was meant to be there.
According to the Health Practice Council of South Africa, Tibela is the youngest active female doctor in South Africa.
Sometimes it gets really overwhelming because I feel like this is a huge burden laid on me because now people expect a lot from me. They want me to be the youngest surgeon or the youngest something in the near future. And all I just wanted to do is be a doctor.
We asked her how patients often react to her, given that she's a very young doctor.
Fortunately enough, I've never had anyone not want me to treat them, but you do get the confused look on patients' faces, like, are you supposed to be here? I've had a few actually ask me how old I am, but I always just tell them I'm old. But I've never really had challenges in terms of them not wanting me to charge them. But also once they see my name tag, then they're like, okay, they have a little more faith in me.
Dr. Tibela has other dreams and ambitions now. In a couple of years, she wants to raise funds to build a hospital back in her home village. A hospital that will also benefit the surrounding villages. She also wants to be a practicing surgeon. Yudison Jomela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Kenya's judiciary has dismissed a case seeking to legalize female genital mutilation among adult women. In delivering the ruling, the judges ruled that one cannot choose to bring harm upon oneself. CGTN's Wilkis Nyabwa has more on that story.
In a ruling that was relayed via video link from a court on the outskirts of Nairobi, Kenyan High Court judges sought to respond to the question of whether willing adult women could in fact choose to undergo female genital mutilation. The court found that the country's Anti-FGM Act does not violate the constitutional rights of adult women as alleged in the petition. This ruling was triggered by a Kenyan doctor who moved to court seeking to legalize female genital mutilation among adult women. Dr. Tatu Kamau argued that adult women should be allowed to do what they want with their bodies. An estimated 200 million girls and women worldwide have undergone FGM, which can cause a host of serious health problems. The ancient ritual, practiced in at least 27 African countries and parts of Asia and the Middle East, is usually carried out by traditional cutters, often using unsterilized blades or knives. Approximately 21% of women and girls aged between 15 and 49 in Kenya are believed to have undergone female genital mutilation. In Kenya, the court reasoned that FGM is a harmful cultural practice that has no place in society. It therefore issued orders directing the Attorney General to amend the Anti-FGM Act to prohibit all forms of FGM, a ruling that is welcome news and a milestone for anti-FGM campaigners across the country. Wilkis Anyabwa, CGTN.
In Algeria, the National Book Fair has been taking place in the capital, Algiers. This is after a whole year's break due to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the launch, the Cultural Minister, Malika Bendouda, promised to reduce book prices to help improve the reading culture in the North African country. CGTN's Wanja Mungai has more details.
Book lovers in Algiers are delighting in this opportunity to sample what local publishers have to offer. It's the first time the National Book Fair is taking place here since the coronavirus pandemic struck. At the launch ceremony last week, the Culture Minister promised to support the industry players and readers.
I'm very happy that the book fair has returned to the public after its absence due to the coronavirus pandemic. There is a plan to hold many other exhibitions, as well as to work to reduce the price of books, because in the past we failed in providing books to readers.
There is an abundance of books despite the absence of international publishing houses. I found the books I was looking for, but the audience's turnout remains modest.
Some say the reading culture in the North African country has been on a steady decline. With this knowledge, some publishers have opted to offer easier methods of consuming literary works, including electronic book readers like this one.
As a publishing house, we prefer to mix between electronic and paper in order to urge Algerians to read. This e-reader can read any page of this Quran with different voices and with interpretation, which helps learning, and the price of the product we are marketing here does not exceed $15.
Such digital innovations are helping to improve the user experience and could hopefully boost the reading culture among Algerians. The event is on till the 20th of March, and aims to host 24 literature conferences and workshops by then. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
And here's a quick recap of our headlines this hour. An ambush has left at least 33 soldiers dead in Mali. Around 14 soldiers were also injured in the attack. The assault took place in the northern Gao region on Tuesday. The military convoy was ambushed near the town of Tessit. Tunisian President Kais Saied has begun his visit to neighboring Libya. He has been received in Tripoli by the president of the Presidential Council, Mohamed Al-Manfi. This marks the first time since 2012 that a Tunisian head of state has visited Libya. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin have met their South Korean counterparts in Seoul. The two senior American officials will stay in the South Korean capital for 2 days. It is expected their talks will focus on the DPRK and containing China's influence. And that's a look at your headlines. Let's now go to Rama Nyang for the latest business news. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in business. Zimbabwe says it's on course to triple its mining revenue by 2023. We'll have the details. And inflation in Nigeria spiked to a 4-year high as food prices go up by more than 20% in the last 12 months.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's start in Zimbabwe. The country's mines minister says the country is on course to triple mining revenue by 2023. The sector is the Southern African nation's leading foreign currency earner, and authorities there think it might actually help the country attain upper middle income status by 2030. With the details from Harare, here's Farai Mokotuya.
2020 performance of 3 out of 5 key minerals has given officials reason to believe they can grow mining revenue from $4 billion per annum to $12 billion by 2023. Production of platinum, diamonds and coal were all up from 2019 levels. New mines, notably the country's largest platinum project, Great Dyke Investments, are progressing well and will boost growth.
This is coming to production very soon because construction is actually taking place, and it will come to full throttle in 2023, and this is a 2023 vision, so that coincides, and if that happens, then we are going to be able to double the platinum industry if this GDI comes into operation.
But chrome and gold underperformed. Deliveries of the latter have retrogressed because of several mine closures and smuggling, which has increased due to low producer prices being offered by the central bank.
We need to, to incentivize exploration, especially in the gold sector. There hasn't been any exploration, both brownfield and greenfield. Then we also need to capacitate the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development in terms of its ability to render technical support to the mining industry.
Government has been urged to expedite new mining legislation and to accelerate reforms to improve the investment climate.
We need to complete what needs to be completed in terms of framework, be it legal framework, policy framework, regulatory framework. Those things need to be completed. Otherwise, we are wasting our time. We need to make the mining industry in Zimbabwe competitive, comparing to other mining jurisdictions. You are looking at pricing, you are looking at the fiscal regime, you are looking at ease of doing business. And then the last thing is stability. We have had, inconsistencies in the past, sudden changes that affect, investor perceptions. Those things need to be addressed.
The launch of the US dollar-denominated Victoria Falls Stock Exchange is seen helping mining houses raise investment capital. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Inflation in Nigeria has gone up to a 4-year high as food prices jumped by more than 20% in the month of February. Now, the rising cost of living is heaping even more financial pressure on a population that's already struggling with a shrinking labour market and a stagnant economy. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam brings us the latest from the federal capital, Abuja.
Nigeria's inflation has been rising steadily over the last 3 years. The nation's Bureau of Statistics puts the latest figure at 17.33%, a 0.86% increase from the previous rate. The last time the nation recorded an inflation rate this high was in February 2017 at 17.78%.
The current inflation rate of Nigeria should worry not only Nigerians, but worry the whole world, considering the fact that Nigeria is supposed to be the largest economy in Africa. This position is very worrisome because when we look at the inflation rate of other African countries, they are not anywhere near where we are today.
The persistent rise in the customer price index indicates that Nigerians are spending more, reducing the purchasing power of an average consumer.
The continuous rise in inflation is impacting on the citizens negatively with a deleterious effect on the economy. One, it means that the citizens have to spend more to get to purchase goods and services. That means that Nigerians have to spend more getting little food. That means the issue of food insecurity will be aggravated, and Nigerians will be subjected to more hardship and deprivation.
Food inflation jumped to 21.79% from 20.57%. Insecurity, especially in the country's northern region, has disrupted farming activities. The economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is still being felt, all backed up by weak fiscal policies.
The level of insecurity in the country is so much that to even the movement of goods from one part of the country to another has become impossible, creating a big gap in the supply chain, and as a result, forcing the prices of goods to go up. And beyond also the issue of insecurity, like we mentioned, is also government policies around foreign exchange, because we also know that most of the goods we consume are imported, and at what rate? At higher dollar rates.
Economic watchers project that inflation could get worse in the coming months if real interventions don't happen soon.
We need to also do everything to ensure that we continue to manufacture locally, because you can see that the manufacturing sector is going down every day, and we need to reactivate the sector so that when we have many areas where factories are established, producing again and producing even up to half of their capacity, we're going to be having enough goods and services for the market. When competition continues to exist, you see that prices will be forced down.
Experts advise government to consolidate on policies that would help strengthen the local currency, the naira, as well as tackle insecurity. This would enable farming communities resume activities, boost local production, and ultimately cut down on imports. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
On to North Africa. Turkey has signalled its intent to reset ties with Egypt after years of tensions between the two sides. The two nations have been in a political row since 2014 after Ankara refused to recognise the ouster of the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood from power in 2013. But lately there have been attempts by Ankara to patch up differences across the Mediterranean. Here's CGTN's Yasser Kim now looking at what is at stake economically if these two countries resume normal ties.
Egypt's Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry said this week that economic cooperation with Turkey has continued in spite of the political standoff back in 2014. Ahmed Shiha, who imports electronics and food products from Turkey, agrees.
Bilateral trade with Turkey is about $5.5 billion US dollars. Egypt exports are $2.5 billion and Turkey exports $3 billion. Our trade relations are growing despite political differences, so I don't expect much increase after a political solution. But Egypt can become a very important link for Turkish products to Africa and Arab nations because of its unique location, while Turkey can be an access point for Egyptian products to reach southern Europe.
Trade and investments are fostered by free trade agreements signed between both sides in 2005. On the other hand, the East Mediterranean natural gas remains a sticking point, especially after Egypt has demarcated its sea borders with Turkey's arch foes, Greece and Malta. The North African nation is also a founder of the East Med Gas Forum that hasn't invited Turkey in.
In our demarcation agreements with Malta and Greece, we preserved Turkey's rights. We did not infringe on anyone's borders and abided by the international agreements. This followed with the Zuhur 1 and 2 discoveries that led to a surplus of our natural gas. We are now exporting gas, and by the end of 2021, we will be self-sufficient in all our petroleum needs, including fuel and natural gas.
The tourism sector can also prosper if normal ties resume. Turkey has been the top destination for Egyptian tourists pre-2013. However, charter flights for Turkey had stopped since then, due to low demand, as the number of visitors have dropped by more than a half in the last 6 years. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
One last story for you. The China-EU investment agreement has gone through 7 years of negotiations, but it's finally taking shape. As both sides iron out the remaining details, the pact is expected to bring in some longed-for stability amidst the turbulent global economic conditions we're facing at the moment. With the details, here's CGTN's Sun Ye.
While growth remains murky across the globe, the European Union said China-EU investment agreement is bringing increased legal certainty with China, its key trading partner, and the economy that EU judges to be responsible for 30% of global growth in the next 5 years. Experts say the agreement is delivering some much-needed stability for both sides.
Today, when we look at the global situation, we are at a very critical point, the global economy. Because of the COVID-19, of course, you know that the recession is coming. With this agreement, they send out very positive messages to the world that both sides will adhere to the open economy of on the global scale.
The agreement grants generous market access for European companies in China, from manufacturing and the automotive industries to financial and health services. But the area to experience the first and biggest dose of tonic could be all things green.
From Chinese perspective, the digital transformation, green transformation has also very clearly mapped in our long-term vision. The same trend also happened in EU side. That is why last year we established the new dialogue mechanism on high level, that is a green dialogue and the digital dialogue. So in the future, if you look at the transformation trends, these two areas are the major, focus.
The investment pact was reached on principle at the end of last year and is one of China's most ambitious deals to date. Chinese Ministry of Commerce has said earlier that the China-EU investment agreement is a balancing and mutually beneficial agreement that will create better business environment for both sides and boost a world economy ravaged by COVID-19. Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
And we'll leave it there for the time being. I'll be back at the top of the hour, though. In global business, we'll be looking at intercontinental travel. Countries on the continent are planning for a green pass to ease travel during the pandemic. We'll explore the benefits to the continent's battered tourism industry and what are the pitfalls that authorities need to watch out for. The details on that and plenty more live from Cairo at the top of the hour. See you then. For now, back to Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. Egyptian designer creates a biodegradable material using eggshells and nuts.
Nature is essential for humans to exist, from pollinating our crops to stabilizing our climate. But our natural world is under serious threat. Humanity's influence on the decline of nature is so great that around 1 million species already face extinction. One continent, Africa, is trying to halt the trend. There are some special people doing some incredible work on the ground to help conserve the continent's fauna, flora, and cultural heritage, whilst introducing these riches to the rest of the world.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
To Egypt now, where a designer has developed a biodegradable material by using eggshells and nuts. The material can be used to make countertops, decorative bowls, and colorful stones for jewelry. Here's CGTN's Beryl Oro with the details.
Rania El-Kala uses egg and nut shells to create biodegradable material. Rania developed the material as part of her research for a master's degree at the German University in Cairo. Her father also had a role to play in her innovation.
I got the idea from my father, who used to bring nuts, and we crack them right before we eat them in order to have them fresh. We always try to use organic and healthy food. I saw how difficult it was for him to crack the shells. Most of the nut fruit consists of shells, especially coconut. 67% of it is the shell. It is very hard, and I was astonished that it looks like wood. Why is no one using it? It is a waste.
Rania begins by grinding shells into powder. She then heats the powder so that it can be later used to create different products.
No one ever believed that this material is made of egg and nut shells. Everyone was surprised. I think it is ingenious, and I think this is the future.
In addition to making biodegradable material, Rania also makes commercial items such as jewelry, consumable goods, and furniture, among others.
We have this material which I use to make my earring. This is how it looks like before making the final product. Before we cut it, the sheet looks like this. There are other materials that look like this, referring to medium-sized tile. I shape it just as I like to make this final product. I did not want the project to stop only at making material that is biodegradable, but I wanted to make it more commercial and to deliver this material to anyone who wants to use it. I try to use it in making furniture, lighting, consumable goods like combs or watches. I also partner up with other people, so it's not only me who is making the products. I can be a material supplier to anyone who wants to use this material for their projects. I can customize it. I can make it hard, soft, according to the color I want, or transparent.
As the world shifts to more environmentally friendly options, Rania hopes her biodegradable material will inspire Egyptians to think of better ways of conserving the environment. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
In Morocco, an unexpected music genre is making major waves. The country's rap scene is witnessing a boom, all thanks to social media. Let's take a look.
Taha Fassi, who goes by the stage name El Grand Toto, is part of a rising crop of Moroccan rappers. He's not only dominating the country's rap scene. Toto is the most listened to Moroccan artist on Spotify, with 20 million streams in 92 countries.
Who would have imagined that a Moroccan rapper would be placed fourth in the world's streaming charts on YouTube? So in my opinion, Moroccans are working like crazy, and there is a need for growth here.
Social media has not only given Moroccan rappers a platform, but given them an opportunity to showcase their culture. Issam takes inspiration from trap, a genre of rap developed in the U.S. state of Atlanta. So much so that he's been dubbed the Prince of Trap. Appealing not only to an international audience, but a local one as well, is important to him. Issam insists on mixing his own influences with the U.S. genre.
YouTube allows me to promote my video clips. Moroccans want to see artists. We have recently started seeing several new innovative artists in trap.
And it's not just male rappers benefiting from the digital audience. Ghislaine, aka Snowflake, burst onto the Moroccan rap scene a year ago when she posted a freestyle on YouTube.
Every time someone speaks to a female rapper, they address her as a woman, not as a person who does this like everyone else. But it's true. It's unique to be a female rapper, and it's unique to be a woman in Morocco in general. So it brings a perspective with an added value that male rappers will never have.
With the digital boom, these rappers have gained more than just massive followings. They've garnered attention from international record companies. Toto signed to RCA Records in 2020, while Issam joined Def Jam Island Records in 2019. Astatal, CGTN.
Let's take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. New CAF boss Beatrice Marshall says he's not planning to change the Africa Cup of Nations schedule.
Africa Live. Find your voice.